Cool. Well, you want me to get started?
Yep,
Let's go. All right. I'm Seth. All right. I'm the one that wrote Cheetah Biscuits. So it's the CTF. The initial one was at BSides in March, and then also at OpenWest. It's the Cheetah Biscuits CTF challenge it's a web-based CTF challenge, right? So there were 5 different web challenges that went along with it. It's actually based on a vulnerable application that we wrote at Envisium, which is a company I work for, that we use for training, right? So I was very familiar with the framework and how the application worked, so it was pretty easy to just strip out some of the other vulnerabilities and put some language around the actual vulnerabilities that we wanted to target for this. So it's Python-based, Django, obviously, Bootstrap. There's some modifications. Probably the favorite thing so these were the 5 challenges, and we'll walk through each of them as we, through the night. I did stand it back up. So if you go to cheetahbiscuits.com and then port 8000 with your browser, you can get to it. You can try and screw me up as we walk through it all. That's cool too. All right, so those were the 5 challenges. We'll get into the details. One of the favorite things that I heard while I was sitting at OpenWest this year was just basically, fuck Cheetah Biscuits, I'm moving on to something else. And I heard this sentiment multiple times, which made me laugh, but I'm also like, oh, come on, guys, just try harder, right? There's hints built into everything, like there is always with a CTF challenge, but there were quite a few people that seemed to solve most of them. I know people had issues with specific ones, and some of them I did make very specific, very targeted, right? So it wasn't just an or 1 equals 1, like for the SQL injection and challenge that would work. So it's also follow the music. Did everybody get the follow the music?
Yeah.
After a while, it became repetitive, right? Every time that you would hit the right spot with the wrong payload, you get rickrolled. Yeah, that was the idea.
It was super helpful.
Yeah, super helpful.
And then you're in the right track. You're just like, I'm in the right track. It's here somewhere, but yeah, it was helpful. Except for the fact that you got we'd be sitting there, and every 10 minutes I'd start hearing Rick roll over there and then over here. And that was kind of fun too.
That was the idea. I just thought it would be kind of fun. So, all right, the first one, I'll see secret access, and it sounds like, what's your name? Mike. That's what I thought. All right. Sounds like Mike did it up here. But we can take a look actually at the site itself and see how it was meant to work, right? So if you get a Cheetah Biscuits port 8000, this is the main, login or the main page. The actual hint from that was in the challenge itself, it was also find the user, find the password. So log in with a super secret account. So obviously, well, not obviously, you weren't supposed to actually know what account was there. You're not signing up for an account. It's one that's pre-existing in the application itself. So I mean, if you just try to log in with test with whatever password, right? If I log in, this will be bad. All right, there we go. So I got rickrolled, so I know that I'm on the right track. But this would be your first exposure to it if you now, I did try to take something from this. So what was the user that was actually valid? Do you remember, Mike?
I used the word Rick, I think. I just guessed.
You just guessed?
Yeah, we just guessed.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you do Rick, it actually doesn't log you in if you've got the wrong password, but it does load the page back up. Right?
You don't get rickrolled, basically.
You don't get rickrolled. That's how you know you're on the right track. Right? At this point, we could walk through it, but you can view the page source. Let's see, where am I at? Make sure everybody can see that. Right? So under Rick, we actually have some sort of a base 64 encoded value. Right? It's commented out, but that's the only change. If you look at the the original page here. Of course, it doesn't want to do that. Where's my login? It's because I zoomed in here. Yeah, if we look at the login page here, that's the only difference between these two, right? Login, we have test. Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
That was tricky. Like that took a good 45 minutes to realize there was a change between the two pages. That was tricky.
That was tricky. I didn't want to make it like, especially the from the login page.
It could be too easy.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So it just depends on how you're viewing the source. So if you're using something like Burp Suite or a proxy, it would make it easier to actually see. But if you're looking at this right here, right, it's not obvious. So, but all right. So once you dig into it, you actually see that there is that value. You can base64 decode that. Yes. And that gives us Adobe number 100. All right. Now, if you try to log in with Adobe number 100, that doesn't actually work. So what else would that point to?
Google it.
Yeah.
See what comes up first.
Exactly. Google.com, Adobe 100, and you get the list of top 100 Adobe passwords that were resulted. And of course, number 100, Snoopy1. And we log in as Snoopy1. There you go. All right. And then there's the key, right? You've logged in as Rick, and you've got, Rick never going to give you up. That was the first key. So, I mean, it required some chaining of the different, all right, you got to look at the source. You got to remember that it's the Adobe 100 and recognize that there's something to do with that besides just plug that in as your password. When I did this originally at BSides, I actually just threw the password in there. So I added one more level of, all right, you got to go do something else rather than just decode the base64 encoded value and throw it in as your password for Rick.
It was kind of a good thing. I was on one of the college teams.
Oh, you were?
And
okay.
So it was good to take that and tell some of my other teammates about, what the password lists were because they didn't understand that. So that was super cool.
Yeah.
And
Good.
they're like, what is Adobe 100? I was like, when I saw that, it was like, oh, I know the Adobe League, and then they're like, well, what is this? And so I got to explain it to them. So that was really cool.
Cool. Which team were you working with?
Bash Ninja.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. Yeah. I mean, and that was the whole idea.
The
I was trying.
team.
Okay. The UBU team. Yep. All right. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea was to, if somebody's not familiar with it, actually give them some chance to familiarize themselves with the different things that are out there. All right. So that was all secret access. Okay. It's basically a user enumeration vuln when it really comes down to it. Besides the fact that you got to recognize some of the other stuff, base64 and whatever else. All right, so that was 100. 200 is hold the door. So this was also known as manipulate these object references. So the description was identifiers, identifiers, and identifiers. Manipulate them to see fit and find the ones that give you the key. Let the music be your guide. Again, Cheetah Biscuits 8000. And then I did issue a hint at some point, right? Only on account of the music will you find your key. There are a couple of places in Cheetah Biscuits that are vulnerable to insecure direct object reference. Right. One of them happens to be like the project details page. So if you went down the wrong path, you may or may not have found what you needed instantly. And again, this was the whole follow the music, moniker that I was trying to follow. Because if we pop in something else here, I can see other IDs, but I could easily go through 1 to 100 here and not find anything that was relevant to the CTF challenges. So, and that's the reason that the hint came out, the account page. So if you happen to stumble on, or you went to your profile page itself and then started changing, all right, again, we're getting rich ass. So obviously we're on the right track. and we could do this manually, or you'd have to do it with some sort of like burp intruder or curl or something along those lines to script it up. I tried to make it a little bit more difficult than just finding, ID number 1, which is pretty typical for an admin account. I did disperse this a little bit throughout the database, so it wasn't, it wasn't super obvious, right? And that it turned out to be on level 50, right? And that the key was in the, in the first name field of the database itself. And another hint was supposed to be Hodor. I always like to consider that Idor and Hodor sound similar enough that hence hold the door, right? So that's the insecure direct object reference. Are there any questions on that one? Or seem to
you put do not change. Could other people change this?
Yeah, this one.
I remember when I did that, I thought a flag popped up, not there.
Initially, I had a key and a ROT 13 value in here, and somebody actually changed it. They hit the update button here, and so instead of trying to retrace it down, I just threw it back in. I did eventually change it so you couldn't change his profile, right? But this was after somebody at OpenWest had decided they were going to change the value and start screwing with it. So, and there's always one, right? There's always one. Good lesson in I need to make sure and handle those edge cases. Just So.
It's like that Simpsons episode where Homer gets out and it's a fire drill, and then he's the first one to get out, and he puts the chair in front of the door. It's like, what did I win?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You get the 200 points and nobody else does until I realize that it's not there. Yeah. Cool. All right. So that's that was hold the door. Fairly easy. I mean, IDOR by itself is usually pretty straightforward. Next time I'm going to have to make it more challenging. You're going to have to guess some, like MD5 or something along those lines to figure out where it's at. I shouldn't give away too many hints of the new one, right? And that'll be for next year.
Are you doing one at SaintCon?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Troy. I don't know do we know who's organizing the CTF or the hacker challenges?
Zeblag.
Josh.
It is? Okay, it's Josh. Maybe I'll talk to him and see. I've got some cycles. I'm going to be down there anyway, so it'd be fun to help out. All right. So next we have alert the presses. This is this one. All you have to do is pop up the yumminess, right? The description, searching for the location could be a trick. Let the music be your guide again. And the hint was nom nom nom. All right. So back to the main dashboard, the main page. We're still Rick here. Search is the key here. So if you get to the search page, the actual Q parameter here is the one that's vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Everybody know what cross-site scripting is?
No.
No?
I just have an info like that.
So it's basically HTML injection, right? So the application itself is taking a parameter from the user and then redisplaying it to them without any sort of filtering or anything on it. So I can rewrite your page, or I can use it to, in this case, we're showing how to steal your cookies.
How would that even happen?
Do you remember the Pokemon Go thing where they could take the nicknames, change their different colors and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Because they put in HTML codes as the name
Oh,
of the
so
user.
it executes code that's
Not supposed to be. It's just supposed to be a variable.
Yeah, it's kind of a client attack. So I attack users of the application through the application itself.
okay. So if there was like a comment field. And you
A comment field. Yeah, I mean, there's three forms. The two most common is the stored, so like a comment field or your account name or something like that. The reflected is one that I'd have to deliver through a phishing email or something like that. That somebody would have to click on a link and then have it attack their session. Basically.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the third one?
DOM XSS. You ever heard of DOM based? So that's like the one that's in JavaScript itself. If you're manipulating So window location is a common one, right? If you're writing directly out to your DOM using document.write or document.writeln or inner.html or .inner.html in JavaScript, you basically don't have to have a dynamic site to actually execute a cross-site scripting attack.
Okay.
And I think there actually is an instance in here. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, so it'd be basically an attack where no call is sent to the server. It's just between the JavaScript itself.
So you still have to send it to the user. It's kind of a modified reflected attack. You still have to send it to the user somehow. Let me see if this is still in here. Can't remember if I might have stripped it out because I was trying to simplify things. Yeah, it looks like I did. I used to have like something in the header here that actually ran and pulled the content after the location hash, right? And then redisplayed it to the user, right? Saying, oh, there's no hash, or there's no anchors here that represent this value, and display it back out, all in JavaScript.
Okay.
And if you throw some of your script tags in there, you can actually do the same thing, alert you can take back over. I mean, have you guys played with Beef before, the browser exploitation framework?
That's awesome.
Venus has. It's pretty cool. So it's all about cross-site scripting. There's basically you set up a server and a Beef server, and you, instead of putting like a script pop-up in, you can give it a script tag to load from the server itself, and it'll hook in and actually allow you to enumerate the system. You can, if the webcam privileges are on, you can open up the webcam. You can view their cookies. Just start to do attacks from within the context of the site that they're on. If you guys are interested, I'd love to come back and we can do a beef night and play with it because it's so fun. I'm pretty sure I have a copy of it sitting here on Cheetah Biscuits somewhere that I've been playing with. But anyway.
Can you give a quick TLDR on the difference between cross-site scripting and like CSRF?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So cross-site scripting that's the client-side attack, right? So it's a form of injection. It's HTML injection. Cross-site request forgery, just because they both have cross-site in there, it doesn't mean that they're in any way related. Right.
Oh.
So a cross-site request forgery is also known as session writing. So it's taking advantage of the trust that your browser has with the cookies that are already there and the sites that exist. So it's called cross-site because if I create an image tag on my site that makes a request to a third site, your browser by default will send the cookies associated with it to that third-party site. So if I pick on Zions Bank, that's where I worked at one point. If I was to, send a request to Zions Bank to pull my account balance via an image get tag and an image request, but I embedded that on my blog, anybody that visited my blog and was logged into Zions Bank at the same time would pull that value back. Right? It may be hard to actually read it because there are some issues with that as far as like the boundaries within the browser itself. It won't actually let my JavaScript read that value. But if I was to do a post request, like using a XML HTTP request, I could do the same thing and maybe try and transfer some money or something like that. Right? So that's what cross-site request forgery is. I'm embedding something in my site that's calling it yet another site, like some sensitive site that you may be logged into. And then if you are logged into it, I execute some sort of an attack there. It becomes very interesting when you combine cross-site scripting with cross-site request forgery, because if I can find a comment field on zionsbank.com, then I can embed attacks that post to the site itself, right? And I can almost bypass the CSRF, the cross-site request forgery preventions that are built into to zionsbank.com if I have that ability, if I have the ability to rewrite the HTML.
Yeah. The best example I've seen of that is there was a DEF CON talk about using cross-site request forgery to get control of the WRT routers. It's all the home-based routers. So they used to have that vulnerability, and people wouldn't change their password. So you could go to a website, You could do a
Crack
cross.
your password.
Well, no, it wouldn't have to crack your password because people didn't change
Default.
it.
Yeah.
So it would, you go to the website, it would log into your router, and then install a man-in-the-middle route. Reroute all your traffic through another source.
Yep.
All just from browsing a website.
Yeah.
It was the title that was like owning millions and millions of routers. It was a really good talk.
Yeah, that was it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Right?
it was a long
Yeah.
time ago.
And I mean, initially when it first became a big topic, CSRF, the fun one to throw around was Netflix. This was at the time that they were still sending out DVDs, right? And so we started to have fun with it because everything was done by a GET request. So if I threw a couple small image tags up on my site, like on a blog or something like that, that would actually take SpongeBob out of the queue, push it to the top of the queue. So that was the next 10 videos that they got. It didn't matter what they were sending back until they noticed what was going on. It was kind of fun, but it was pretty malicious too, because from those simple GET requests, you could also change someone's password. You could change their mailing address. It was all done via GET, right? So I mean, we could talk about preventions too. We're not really.
No, I don't want to go too far off topic.
But yeah,
I know a lot of people get those two kind of.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get them confused, and so we end up talking about it quite a bit. So.
When you combine them, though, it becomes a lot more powerful.
Oh, it does. Yeah, But anytime somebody's embedding something on their site to go to a third-party site, your browser automatically sends those cookies with it. Yeah, we can talk about preventions at another time, but we'll do a beef night here. That'd be fun.
Awesome.
That'd be fun to do because it's a super interesting tool, and you can embed something on your blog that attempts to make zombies of everybody's browsers as long as they're still around. So
Didn't Imgur have that problem for a little while?
that
So someone was able to upload malicious code to Imgur
Mhm.
in an image, and then I don't remember if it was a specific image or if it was a whole set, but through Reddit or whatever, it got posted and it hit the front page. So every single person who opened that image, it did some kind of cache store. I don't remember exactly, but
Yeah.
the same kind of thing happened with Imgur, where someone was able to.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of the image processors. A few years ago, we had a lot of vulnerabilities in those, right? And so if you were to embed some malicious code in there,
Fun fact: you can stego images in Imgur.
Yeah.
They don't do any compression really.
they're not doing any.
Google will
any
take
changes?
the stego out. I noticed.
Yeah.
During the CTF, they sent me stego. I posted there's no stego in this. I'm like, well, it's directly from my email.
Oh, but it
Gmail
was
ripping-
Gmail was
ripping it out. Yeah.
interesting.
Or something.
Huh. That's
So
interesting
We
to
did
see.
that for the Dick Militia challenges. We had the stegoed image
Uh-huh.
Imgur, and it worked.
And it worked. Yeah, on Imgur, but not on Google. You never know, right? Whose engineers are on top of things and who isn't. All right, so back to alert the presses. Mike, do you remember this one?
I do. You had to type a specific alert, didn't you? And it drove me nuts because I got it to do cross-site scripting, but it took me 4 hours, honestly, to figure out what specific thing to type in.
You're dedicated, man.
Well, we had. Okay, I'm going to say the reason we did it is because there was a $1,000 prize to the college team that won, so that's $1,000. So we had nothing to do over the summer, so why not spend 4 days playing with the CTF challenges?
Yep. Well, it worked out, right? Right, it really did. So, I mean, as far as this one goes, you're right. Once you identified that there is cross-site scripting here, right? If you hit go, it's working, right? But it's not popping anything up.
There's actually a hint telling you about the cross-site scripting in the source code. I don't know if you remember that.
Do I remember? I no.
See right there.
Oh yeah,
cross-site
A3
scripting.
cross-site scripting.
And
That's
it was
great.
that took me, within a minute or two, we're like, oh, there's the cross-site scripting. It's actually right above it with the search bar, but it was close enough to get us there. But then figuring out what specific thing to type in was kind of tough.
And this is where the other hints were supposed to help you, right?
Problem is people start spamming those things with everything because they're testing for the SQL injection.
Oh yeah. So it's going all over. I mean, I should show you some of the logs. Yeah. Let's see.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off tangent.
No, it's fine. We've got time, so we've only got 5 challenges.
Someone started busting the game or the CTF scoreboard site. I'm like, if you're gonna bust me, at least change your agent string.
Yeah.
It says buster right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly. Well, no, and I see this quite often too, and so like registrations and things like that, right? A whole bunch of tests from the same person. Joey op test. I was seeing Peter Winter. You know what Peter Winter is from? That's Intruder from Burp Suite or the Burp Suite scanner, which will try and look up stuff using Peter Winter. And I see that in the static files as well, like the uploads, right?
So you can see all the uploads with those random uploads.
Yeah, so Peter Winter and 5469 equals 5469. And, so it's testing for SQL injection and everything like that. And of course, there's, fucked up PHP because.
I still remember that pops up by your laugh. Like someone's pissed.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of interesting to watch the traffic on these. Like if you've never run a CTF challenge, just to see what people are trying. Like that's super informative as well. At DEF CON, they'll actually give you the traffic, right? That's going on from the CTF. If they put it out there for download so you can analyze it, take a look and see what people are doing. And that's why you don't drop O-Days at DEF CON.
Oh, if you want them to continue to be
O-Days, yep. All right, so
where do you find that that script right there?
This one?
No, the whole thing, the whole chunk. Or yes, like how did you know what to type in that spot?
Okay, so this is a typical payload, right? A typical cross-site scripting payload is this closing out a bracket and then script alert script, right?
Okay.
If I don't have script tags in here,
right,
it's not going to care. And this is where because I am redirecting you, it's probably a little bit more difficult than it would have been if I had just left it without the follow the music stuff. Because if I throw in just some of the random characters along here, and you see that it breaks some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I just do those two, it actually breaks the HTML, and I'm starting to see weird
That was the moment
artifacts.
we knew we hit it.
Yeah, you're starting to see weird artifacts. And if you actually do a view source on it, right? I mean, again, this is where if you're doing some sort of a web CTF, you want to run everything through a proxy, right? Because you're actually looking at the HTML. You're not just looking at the rendered content from the browser itself. You want to know what's going on behind the scenes. So the double quote, right? So here we see the cross-site scripting again. So there it's pushing it back out, and this is where it's actually displaying that interesting content. The hint says nom nom nom, which is who?
Steal the cookie. Right?
Yeah, steal the cookie. That was supposed to be the hint for this is the payload that you want to actually find, right?
Well, yeah, that's one of the most common things to do with cross-site scripting is to steal credentials from the cookie.
Yeah. Let's see. So if we look at the code itself, right? I am asking for you to pop up the cookie rather than just addressing it somehow or trying to send it off site. But the script payload, right? This alert one is, that's basically a and 1 equals 1 for cross-site scripting.
Okay.
So, if you go look at any sort of cross-site scripting cheat sheet, they'll always do an alert one. They'll always do some sort of a pop-up, whether it's alert 1 or alert XSS or something like that. And so the idea is, all right, we're going to change that to document cookie because I want to steal the session credentials of whoever's logged in. And we hit go there. And at this point, I get the pop-up. I don't actually see the... and this is there's a CSRF token, so it's trying to prevent cross-site request forgery, and the session ID that's associated with it. And that's really hard to see.
I'll just copy it and blow it up.
Yeah. So this is that's all it was. Right? And I threw amazing sauce in there because it's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, so once you actually see this, you hit OK, and the key does pop up. Right. But there was one more step on this. Anybody recognize the encoding on that?
Percent code.
Yeah, it's percent encoded. It's just URL encoded.
Yeah.
So you just have to do a URL decode on it, and it ends up being, your script alert cookie or whatever it was. Right? So search page. Nom nom nom. Yeah, because document cookie, and then URL decode, alert the cookie monster. Right? But again, that was that you did have to load the whole script tag in there to get the key value. Cool. All right. Any questions on alert the presses?
It was fun. I'd never done cross-site scripting before, so it was cool to play with this and learn about it. So
good. Yeah, if you've never done it before, like I said, beef would be fun. Yeah. So we'll put it on the calendar here in a month or so. All right, weighty matters. Number 4. This was 400 points. This was, assign me your masses yearning to be free. I like to refer to this as a hipster vulnerability because it's one that came about with Ruby was kind of the first big, mass assignment vulnerability. So weighty matters, mass assignment. That's where it goes. Use one to become a singing superstar. That's supposed to be a hint as well, right? So those new to the music are the lucky ones. I missed the Y there. Doesn't matter. So, and anybody explain to me what mass assignment is? You dealt with it before? Like I said, it's a hipster vuln. It's basically developers being lazy. Really?
It never happens.
No, it never happens. But so really, what happens is what a user submits a form on a website, creating something or modifying an object. And instead of checking every single form filled on that object, I just basically say, hey, I know that's a user object. I'm just going to store it straight into the database. And it'll store just fine, leaving off builds or, and the mass assignment is the fact that you can add fields on there as long as they exist in the database. These newer frameworks will actually attach them to the values that are in the database. Right? So if you have something like an admin field or something like that controls roles or controls something, some sort of a security decision by the application, you may be able to manipulate that simply by adding a parameter to the value that's being sent to the server. Right? It happened, the initial big one was actually against GitHub. They were vulnerable to this. So if you threw an is_admin as 1 on your user account and just submitted it back, it would automatically make you a administrator on GitHub, and you could see everyone's projects, all the private projects, and you could do whatever you wanted to them, right? I mean, so that was, obviously that's a big problem for GitHub, right?
yeah, they were.
Yeah, they took care of that really quickly once it came out, but. So that's really what mass assignment is. If you look at the code behind it, let's see. Let's see. Register. All right. There's some of that's in there, right? There's my redirect to never going to give you up. But this is it right here, right? So user form is valid. So as long as there's nothing strange with the form, I'm just going to take that, I'm going to save that directly into my ORM, right? So my data repository without actually checking to see what is contained in the user form. But a part of that user form are dangerous different values, including one. Let's see. So let's actually walk through. Okay.
Oh, I remember where this one was. Okay.
Yeah, this is on the sign up page here. So registration.
Yeah. And you gave a good hint for it too.
Yeah, I was trying to. Right? What was my hint here?
Source code.
Yeah, I remember this one. It was in the you had it in the fields in the source code.
Oh yeah, yep. Yep, the fields are in the, let's see. I have the fields. Oh yeah, exactly.
It's like, oops, somebody forgot to delete this comment.
Yeah. Yep. So this one was fairly easy because it was there, right? And there were, right, because there's, okay, super user, superstar status. This is supposed to be it. So ID is user. So here you go, name is super user. So if you add this is super user field to the form itself and then submit it in, then you should be able to, you're taking advantage of the mass assignment.
This is the first time I'd used Burp Suite to do that.
To do that right
Yeah,
there.
this is the first time I touched it. So
Yeah.
that was cool too.
I mean,
You could do it lots of other ways, but
yeah. So if I actually, let's do a quick inspection here. Alright. I'm just going to edit this locally. I'm not going to try to use Burp Suite because,
Yeah, DevTools is awesome.
yeah, they are. Type equals hidden. Name equals. You know, if you were to try something else like test, right?
don't you actually have to use it for a specific user and then log in as that user?
Yeah, you do have to log in, right?
So do it with Rick, I guess.
But you can't register.
You can't register Rick. He's already been
Because it's an
registered.
Oh,
update.
right.
Yeah, it's an
Right.
update to the database. So I mean, if I add another field here, and this is, you know, there is the hint behind the scenes, but if I add another field and register this user, okay, I added an extra field. I got Rick again. I'm on the right track. Right. So let's try, you know, test 101. Let's inspect that. Let's inspect that again.
Do you know how many users ended up at the end of the CTFs?
Yeah, I can show you.
Just curious. It should have looked like 1,000.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch. That was, yeah. All right. So, and then if you take the information that's in there, hidden name equals is super user. Value equals, we'll put a 1 on it because it should be a Boolean value. Okay. Save that out. We register it. Okay, great. Thanks for registering. It doesn't actually give you the key there. You have to log in as. So in this case, I registered test 101. There you go. All right. So there's the key number 4. So way down by hipster bones. If we look in the, we can actually look in the database here. There's only 200 users that were in there that fully got registered, right? Which isn't too bad. I think it is doing some limiting, so if they weren't putting in valid email addresses or something like that, they were probably getting rickrolled without it adding to the database. Cool. All right, so that's mass assignment. If you've never heard of it before, you should go look it up. It's kind of a fun vulnerability. Like I said, it's these newer frameworks, the newer ORMs that are vulnerable to it. Hence the reason I call it a hipster vulnerability. You know. All right, and then finally, the last one that we have is, okay, let's see. Of course, I had to play with, you know, dropping things down. Is super user value equals 1. Where's the key? You log in. Last one is where are my keys, right? So this is your SQL injection vulnerability. And I did actually make this easier at one point in OpenWest. I rolled it back a little bit because I was being very pedantic about the, you know, how you had to structure your SQL injection request to get something to fire, to get some data back. But it was 500 points as well, so it had to be worth it, right? Okay, so in this case, inject all the things. This is where we saw a whole bunch of people that were throwing, you know, SQL Ninja and SQL Map at the site itself. Extracting data is the thing, but the key comes when you find that one point. And yes, follow the music. All right. And then the hint only between the project lines, right?
That was a nice hint.
Yeah. At least I told you where it was located, right? You've got to log in as a user that has access to some sort of project or create some sort of project. So I fall back to Rick because Rick was easier to actually find. But I mean, I saw people spamming all across the application looking for
until they
SQL
changed
injection.
Password for Rick too.
Did they at one point?
You can keep doing that over and over and over again. That was super annoying.
I think
Jerks.
I think I finally did lock that down. Let me see. I should have. If I didn't. No, I did.
Okay, sweet. I just remember that. I was like, dang, I can't log in anymore.
Somebody had actually changed the password.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you, oh no, it doesn't look like you can. But I think you could actually post back up here, right? If you view the form itself, you could actually change someone else's password if you were, maybe not. Doesn't have an input. All right, I get confused. We write so many vulnerable applications that sometimes, yeah. All right, so you're logged in as Rick. Between the projects, we wanted you to actually go in and play with the project details page. The SQL injection vulnerability is actually in that URL parameter that you see up at the top. And here it says, you know, it's embedded in between two folders is what it looks like, but Django and most newer frameworks will actually parse out those values, and you can treat them as parameters just like you would a get parameter or a post parameter. So 14, if you put a tick mark in here, what happens?
Rick rolled.
Rick rolled. There you go. And then it's, all right, now we need to start playing with our SQL injection payloads. If you've never played with SQL injection before, you want to try, you know, an OR 1 equals 1, an AND 1 equals 1, right? Something that's going to form a proper SQL statement, right? If I throw a tick mark and I get Rick rolled, it means that there's some sort of exception. There's something happening there, right? All right, so an OR 1 equals 1, it does return, and this is where I, you know, eventually went back and made it a little bit easier to make a value like that actually return the key. But originally, in the form that I've got it right now on the site, it was requiring a union select to get through this portion, right? I wanted you to actually try and extract some sort of data from the database in order to pass the CTF challenge, right? So if we did a union select 1, right, which is just going to append a 1 to the current running instance, let's see what happens here. All right, try harder. It means it's malformed. Right? We've got to start to use the fact that we're getting redirected as a positive, negative response on whether or not we're building the query properly.
Oh, cool.
So 14, union, select. And then we can go through and we can do 1, 1, 1. Turns out that the way that this is being used,
You could just do. I did it with just spaces and it pulled it out.
oh yeah, you don't have to do pluses. They get interpreted as spaces. You're right.
Union select 1 folded up the key for me.
Oh, it did. Yeah, there you go. Union select 1. That's probably why. Yeah, because the pluses, it was actually pushing it back through there. Yep. So I wanted you to recognize that, you know, an OR 1 equals 1, an AND 1 equals 1 wasn't the only thing that you could do with the SQL injection vulnerability. You had to actually, you know, start to try and pull something else back, right? Because you could pull various different values. In this instance, it actually doesn't change the page, so you wouldn't be rewriting the page itself. But you could use the positive negative response to enumerate the database. I mean, if you turn SQL map on this location, it would actually be able to enumerate through the database. I mean, that's a different story, obviously. You know, SQL map. You guys played with SQL map before?
I tried.
It's an awesome tool.
Again, it's an awesome tool. Maybe we should do a BFan SQL map tonight. All it does is identifies a specific location, tests whether or not it's vulnerable to SQL injection, and then attempts to enumerate everything behind the scenes that it can find. So you can tell it, all right, I want to know the structure of the database. And it'll go through, figure out the structure, depending on whether, you know, if the database it's blind SQL injection, kind of like it is here, where I have a positive negative response, it's going to take a lot longer. If it actually dumps data back out or some sort of error based, it goes a lot quicker.
almost like a fuzzer of sorts. It's a little smarter to try.
Yeah, and it knows what the payload value should be, right? So once it identifies, all right, this is, this is a MySQL database on the back end. I know that these are the different keywords that I can use to extract data, and this is what the information schema looks like to actually do that, right? But it's all built for just SQL injecting and pulling data back out. Cool. All right. So any other questions on where are my keys? Project detail. Throw in a tick mark. 1 = 1. Select count star or select 1, and then it shows you the key.
Sweet.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at the code behind the scenes. No, that's not what I wanted to do. All right. If we see that there's this, extra SQL statement that's being run to pull information back from the ORM. Most new frameworks will protect you from SQL injection pretty well, unless you decide to be stupid and talk to the database directly, right? Which we did. And we're using just string concatenation to build this query. The thing you got to be careful with on your SQL injection point, if you put something that returns 0 in there, it actually completely borks still because you can't divide by 0. Right? But because all it's doing is building a percentage that it's throwing up on the page of whether or not the task is complete. That's all that this does. Cool. So that's Cheetah Biscuits. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? No? Yeah.
I had a question. There was, when we were playing with this, when we found some sort of an admin panel.
Yep.
That we could log into. What was that?
That's your Django admin panel.
Okay. Because you could log into that and start messing with users. That was kind of fun. I tried to log into it just now but I couldn't remember what it was.
I may have seen that people were logging into that. I did. Right?
Yeah,
I did.
I usually change that to something obscure.
Yeah.
Just so it's hard to find. One thing I've been thinking about adding to the framework is making it so it requires a certificate or something to access it.
Yeah, you see how I ripped out this. There's a section in URLs that basically says, all right, here is. Yeah, I didn't really think about the admin panel because I wasn't using it for a lot with this site. So if I enable that, that's probably what you were getting to.
Because I remember that I was messing with it and playing with users and trying to figure out SQL injections there. You can use your super user admin that you created.
Yep, to actually get access to it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it was after that, at some point, I think it was probably day 2 that I noticed that, and I was like, oh, whoops.
Okay, that was a mistake. I was like, was there something here that I'm supposed to find? Because it seemed pretty important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. If you really wanted to mess with people, you could have just,
I didn't want to be a jerk and just delete everything, but
Why not?
Yeah. I could have restored it, right? It would have been fine. Yeah. Just restarted and pulled the database back in.
You
Right?
should have seen some of the people arguing with me. They're like, no, it's broken. I know it's broken. I'm like,
It's just remembering because I was out and about, right? And I kept getting emails from Lance. It's like, hey, is the Cheetah Biscuit site up? Like, yeah, it's running. Are you sure? I keep getting questions about it. And I check it on my phone and exploit a couple things from my phone. Nope, it's working just fine.
That's cool. Were these the same challenges that you did during B-Sides? Or did you tweak them?
I tweaked it from what B-Sides was. I actually made them a little more difficult than the B-Sides ones were, right? So B-Sides, the alert one, all you had to do was an alert pop-up, right? And then you would get the key. Or the SQL injection was just or 1 = 1. I think IDOR was easier as well. I allowed you to get it on the admin page or something like that, rather than having to spin through more of them. So I mean, the next one, if I help out with SaintCon, we'll pick a new framework. We'll pick something different. So
Is there going to be a capture the flag at SaintCon?
well, there's the hacker challenges.
Just like B-Sides.
Mm-hmm.
So not like Pros versus Joes kind of thing.
No, no, yeah. Those hacker challenges. If you've never done those for St. Con, I think the first one they're posting is September 1st.
Yeah.
I saw him tweet out about it. They're always kind of puzzle related, or yeah, it is very much a scoreboard, and then it's share the points, right? So if you're the first person to get something, your score will go way up, and then as more people get it, it goes down, 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 down. So it's this constant battle. You got to discover the new stuff to keep your score up, which makes it really interesting.
Do the hard things.
Yeah, if you can figure out the hard ones that nobody else can, it's worth a ton of points to do that. Right? Whereas something that 100 other people have already solved, it's probably not worth it as much.
Yeah, it keeps people from sitting on challenges.
Yep. Yeah, it spurs them to keep going. So it's a way of doing it, right? I don't think this system that you build is just scores, right? You get 500 points. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about adding some of those features, but I'm like, well, I don't want to make it too complicated for people either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did sit on points, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that we were talking about is making it, making challenges increase in points based on how much time had gone before someone could crack it. So if it's if everybody can get it, then it's only worth that base value. But if it goes for 10 hours and nobody's cracked it, maybe it goes up by 50 points, right? So things, and this was the interesting thing about writing it, right? Some of these I thought, hey, this is going to be super difficult, nobody's going to get it. And then within, and they hit it quick, or they couldn't figure out the document cookie thing or something like that, and it takes them a long time to solve some of the other ones, right? So, a time-based system may actually be
A good thing.
right? You could start everything off at the same value, and then the hard ones tick up over time.
Yeah.
that was the reason why we held our points, because we were hoping that people hadn't solved certain ones, so the point value would increase.
Mhm.
So you got to mitigate that a little bit, but maybe
Yeah.
the point sharing can do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting. It was cool. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming and talking about it.
Yeah. Sure. Anytime.
Yeah, I would increase if they found an issue with something I wrote and they're like, this doesn't work, I'd add more points. So that's why that one kept going up, because I kept screwing up and making mistakes. I'm like, all right, more points to help the people that have spent a ton of time on it or getting really close to it, and the reason why they haven't got it yet is because I made a mistake. So figured that was the least I could do, because they could have spent the time doing other things.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Cool.
All right.
You.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's cool. Fun. Thanks, guys.